Okay, imagine this. It's January 21st, 1793. France is 4 years into a revolution. The monarchy has collapsed. The church has been dismantled. The old aristocratic order gone. The country is trying to build itself from scratch, and nobody is quite sure it's going to work. You're in Paris, sitting in the National Convention, the new revolutionary parliament, and a vote is being taken. Should the King of France be put to death? Now, the room is full of politicians, lawyers, revolutionaries, but sitting amongst them, voting, is a painter. The most famous painter in France, a man whose paintings hang in the Louvre, whose work has made grown men weep in public. And when his name is called, he stands up and he votes yes. He votes to kill the king. His name was Jacques-Louis David, and that vote, a painter voting on the life of a king, would define everything that came after, for better and for worse. But to understand how he got there, we first need to ask, how does a painter end up with that kind of power? To understand that, we need to go way back. Before David, before the revolution, back to a time when French art looked very different. How do you pronounce the name?
Jean-Honoré Fragonard.
Jean-Honoré. Look at this painting. The Swing by Jean-Honoré Fragonard, 1767. A woman swings, her shoe flying toward a little angel, who gestures shh to show a secret is unfolding. A man hides in the bushes, looking up her skirt, while the older man pushes the swing, unaware of what's happening. This painting is witty, flirtatious, and entirely wrapped up in the private pleasures of the ruling class. And the French aristocracy loved this stuff. This was the art of the ruling class. Rococo, they called it. Light, decorative, charming, sexy.
C'est Boucher.
Painters like Boucher and Fragonard made a fortune painting exactly this. Beautiful people doing beautiful things in beautiful gardens. But by the 1760s, not everyone was charmed. The critic Denis Diderot, one of the sharpest minds in France, looked at Boucher's paintings and wrote, "What colors, what variety, what a wealth of objects and ideas. This man has everything, except truth." Except truth. That's the key word, because underneath all that silk and powder, France was rotting. The monarchy was broke, the peasants were starving, and the art, the official, celebrated, expensive art, was paintings of aristocrats on swings. It couldn't last. And right around this time, something happened that changed the direction of European culture. They dug up Pompeii. Well, first Herculaneum in 1738, then Pompeii in 1748. Two entire Roman cities buried by a volcano in 79 AD, suddenly visible again. And it wasn't just columns and statues, it was everything. Houses, wall paintings, furniture, graffiti, bread still in the ovens, an entire civilization frozen in time. And among the educated, wealthy classes of Europe, this sparked a kind of ancient world mania. Greek furniture, Roman architecture, classical hairstyles. If you were a wealthy young man, you went on the grand tour. You traveled to Rome, you sketched the ruins, you came back and you told everyone how cultured you were. It was the 18th century version of studying abroad and making it your whole personality. But the person who turned this obsession into a complete theory, the person who gave the educated classes of Europe a framework for why ancient Greece was the peak of human achievement, was a man who never painted a single painting. Not a painter, not an architect, a writer. A critic. His name was John Joachim Winckelmann. Winckelmann was born in 1717 in Prussia. His father was a shoemaker, dirt poor, but the kid was brilliant. Taught himself Greek and Latin, worked as a school teacher and a librarian just to survive, and in 1755 he published a book that changed everything. It was called Thoughts on the Imitation of Greek Works in Painting and Sculpture, and in it he made a claim that would echo for the next 100 years. He said that the defining quality of Greek art was noble simplicity and quiet grandeur. 5 words. That's it. 5 words that defined an entire century of art. What did he mean? He meant that great art should be calm, restrained, balanced, not screaming, no drama, no excess. Think of a Greek statue, perfect proportions, calm expression, idealized body, pure white marble. That, Winckelmann said, was the peak. Everything else was stepped down. One small problem with this: the ancient Greeks did not make pure white marble statues. Their statues were painted, vivid garnish colors, bright red lips, blue eyes, yellow hair. We only know this now from chemical analysis and faint traces of pigment. Winckelmann had no idea. He built an entire aesthetic philosophy around the wrong thing. His idea of noble simplicity was, at least in part, the result of 2000 years of paint wearing off, which is either a great argument for the power of an idea or a cautionary tale about inventing a perfect past to criticize an imperfect present. He moved to Rome, got access to the greatest collections of ancient art in the world, and in 1764 published History of the Art of Antiquity, which transformed the discipline of art history. People had written about individual artists before, but Winckelmann organized everything around styles and periods, tracing the rise and fall of entire civilizations through their art. That framework, we still use it today. Now here's the thing, and this is important. Winckelmann never went to Greece. His entire philosophy of Greek art was based on Roman copies. He was building a fantasy of Greece from second-hand evidence, and he did it so convincingly that everyone believed him. He was murdered in 1768 in Trieste at the age of 50, stabbed by a man he'd met in an inn. The circumstances suggest a sexual encounter gone wrong. Winckelmann's letters express intense romantic feelings toward young men, and most scholars read him as gay, though, as with so much of his life, certainty is hard to come by. What we can say is it adds another layer to his lifelong idealization of the male Greek body. What matters for us is this: Winckelmann created the idea. He built the intellectual framework. Now, someone needed to turn it into paintings. But first, you need to understand how the art world actually worked in 17th century France, because it was a system, rigid, hierarchical, and brutally competitive. There was one exhibition that mattered above all others, the Salon, run by the Académie Royale, held at the Louvre. If you got into the Salon, you had a career. There were other patrons, other venues, but nothing with the Salon's reach, prestige, or power. To be excluded from the Salon was to be invisible, and within the Salon there was a strict hierarchy of what you were allowed to paint. At the top, history paintings, scenes from the Bible, from mythology, from ancient history, the noblest form of art. And at the very bottom, still life. This hierarchy matters. It explains everything about what's coming. It explains why David painted Greek heroes. The other thing you need to know about is the Prix de Rome, the most prestigious prize a young artist could win. You win the Prix de Rome, you get a funded trip to the French Academy in Rome. Years of studying the masters, the ruins, the sculpture, and the young painter named Jacques-Louis David wanted it more than everything. He failed 3 times. David was born in Paris, 1748. His father was killed in a duel when David was very young, so already we're starting with violence. Dead parent before age 10? Every great origin story has one. He was raised by well-off uncles who wanted him to be an architect. He wanted to paint. He won that argument. He studied under a painter named Joseph-Marie Vienne, and he entered the Prix de Rome competition multiple times through the early 1770s. He lost. He entered again, lost again. He entered the 3rd time, lost again. And repeated failure broke him. According to some biographical accounts, David locked himself in his room and refused to eat, convinced his life was over. The details are murky and probably exaggerated by later admirers, but the despair was real. He was in his mid-20s, and the one path he staked everything on kept closing in his face. He entered again in 1774. He didn't win. Just kidding, he finally got it. He went to Rome and everything changed. He arrived in Rome and at first wasn't very impressed, struggling to find his direction. But soon the ideas he read about, especially those of Winckelmann, the art critic, came to life in front of him. He studied ancient sculptures, Raphael and artists like Caravaggio, spending 5 years learning and absorbing the art around him. And when he came back to Paris, he was a completely different painter. The loose, colorful style of his early work was gone. In its place, moral seriousness, clean lines, rigid geometry, local colors and a restrained palette, muted overall with sharp accents guiding the viewer's eyes. Ancient virtue painted with absolute conviction. He had become exactly what Winckelmann, the theorist, had called for. He had become neoclassical. Worth noting, David wasn't alone in this. Across Europe, artists adopted the neoclassical style to explore ideas of beauty, harmony, and timeless order inspired by ancient Greece and Rome. Painters used classical myths and historical scenes to explore heroism, virtue, and human emotion. Sculptures like Canova focused on elegance of the human body, calm, idealized forms in perfect proportions. The style appeared in mythological paintings, portraits, architecture, decorative arts. It became a visual language of elegance and good taste. David worked in the same tradition as all of these artists, but what he did was charge the style with moral and political urgency. And you can see the difference immediately. His first big Salon success was Belisarius begging for alms in 1781. A Roman general, once great, now blind and begging in the street. The message? Even the greatest can be destroyed by an ungrateful state. People noticed. Success at the Salon made David a full member of the Académie Royale, the institute that trained French artists, set official standards, and decided what counted as serious painting. He became one of its most powerful teachers. His style, his values, his way of seeing passed directly into the next generation. He wasn't just working within the system, he was shaping it. But the painting that changed everything, the work that defined Neoclassicism, came 3 years later. This is the Oath of the Horatii. David painted it in 1784. Take a moment and really look at it. 3 brothers, the Horatii, are swearing an oath. They're about to fight to the death for Rome, against 3 brothers for a rival city. Their father holds the swords. The brothers reach for them. Their bodies are taut, geometric, almost architectural. They're not individuals. They're a machine built for duty. Look at the colors. The brothers wear brighter, more saturated reds. Your eye goes to them first, and it's supposed to. The women on the right are painted softer, muted tones, blues, grays, near white. The color itself tells you the moral structure before you even understood what's happening. Action and duty on the left, grief and passivity on the right. The stone background is all natural browns and grays, keeping your attention on the figures. The colors are clean, flat, and clearly separated. Every form is clear and deliberate. Notice also the light. Harsh, directional, almost theatrical, like a spotlight on a stage. And the composition. Your eye is drawn to the center, to the swords, the literal pivot point between duty and loss. The whole thing is controlled, deliberate, organized, the opposite of Rococo in every possible way. And then look at the right side of the painting. The women. They're collapsed, weeping, because here's the thing. One of the Horatii brothers is married to a woman from the enemy city. She's actually the sister of one of the enemy brothers. And one of the enemy brothers is engaged to a Horatii sister. No matter who wins, these women lose someone they love. The men are rigid, vertical, all straight lines. The women are curved, soft, crumbling. The message is brutal and clear. Duty to the state comes before everything. Before love, before family, before your own life. When this painting was exhibited at the Salon, people wept in front of it. Not just because it was sad, because it was powerful. It felt like a call to action. And David didn't stop. In 1787, the death of Socrates. Socrates, condemned by the Athenian state for his ideas, calmly reaching for the cup of poison while his students fall apart around him. The state is killing him, and he accepts it with perfect calm. You die for what you believe. And then in 1789, the lictors bring to Brutus the bodies of his sons. Brutus, the founder of the Roman Republic, has ordered the execution of his own sons for conspiring to restore the monarchy. The bodies are being carried past him. He doesn't look. The women scream. He sits in shadow, rigid, destroyed but unbroken. This painting was displayed at the Salon just weeks after the storming of the Bastille. The Paris prison was attacked in July 1789, marked the beginning of the French Revolution. The story goes that authorities tried to pull it from the exhibition, but the crowd demanded it to stay. Whether that happened exactly as described is debated. Some historians think the tale was polished later to make David seem more heroically embattled. Regardless, the painting's timing was explosive. Do you see what's happening? These aren't just paintings anymore. A painting about a man who killed his sons to protect the Republic, displayed in Paris in summer of 1789, that's not art appreciation, that's a political statement, and everyone in that room knew it. David had spent a decade painting ancient heroes who sacrificed everything for the state. And now, in the summer of 1789, the state was being torn apart and rebuilt. And David wasn't going to just paint it, he was going to join it. This is where the story goes dark. And I mean genuinely dark. Not art wall drama dark. People dying dark. In 1792, David was elected to the National Convention, the revolutionary parliament. He didn't sit with the moderates, he sat with the Montegrades, the radicals, the Jacobins. They were led by Maximilian Robespierre, the lawyer who made himself the ideological heart of the revolution and who was rapidly becoming its most feared figure. And on January 21st, 1793, the day I mentioned at the beginning, David voted for the execution of King Louis XVI. A painter voted to kill a king. But it didn't stop there. David became essentially the revolution's visual authority. He organized festivals, massive public events, meant to replace Catholic ritual with Republican ceremony. He contributed to the design of uniforms and public imagery. He was deeply involved in shaping what the revolution looked like. And in a world before photography, before television, that meant he had real influence over what people believed about it. He was close to Robespierre, the radical Jacobin leader, very close. He reportedly said to him, "If you drink hemlock, I will drink it with you." That's not a casual friendship, that's a pact. He was actively involved in the revolutionary government, sitting on the Committee of General Security, putting his name on documents that led to people being arrested, tried, and executed. He was one of many people who signed, not acting alone, but consider what that means for the man who painted the death of Socrates. You remember that painting? Socrates, in his last moments, calmly reaching for the cup of poison, while his students fall apart around him. Socrates was condemned by the Athenian state for refusing to abandon his ideas. That's the subject David chose to paint and made beautiful. A man killed by the state. And now, David was the state. His name was on the paperwork. The tension between the ideals he painted and the reality he served is staggering. In July 1793, a shocking event in revolutionary Paris gave rise to one of the century's most famous paintings. Jean-Paul Marat was a revolutionary journalist, a radical. He had a skin condition that forced him to spend hours in a medicinal bath, where he would write, receive visitors, and conduct business. On July 13, 1793, a young woman named Charlotte Corday talked her way into his apartment, claiming to have information about counter-revolutionary plots. Marat received her while sitting in his bath. She pulled out a knife and stabbed him in the chest. He died almost immediately. According to accounts that have been passed down, though some historians treat this with caution, David had visited Marat the day before. He knew the bath, the setup, the man, and when he heard the news, he went to work immediately. Look at it. Marat is slumped in his bath. His head is wrapped in a cloth. His skin is pale, almost glowing. His face is calm, peaceful. He looks like he's sleeping. He looks like Christ taken down from the cross, but I'll get to that in a sec. In his left hand, a letter. Corday, Marat's murderer, did use a letter to get into the apartment, but this isn't that letter. David wrote those words himself. They make Marat look like a man killed while helping someone in need. David put it in his hand on purpose, as part of the myth he was building. On the floor, the knife, bloodied, and on the wooden block beside the bath, the block Marat used as a desk, David curved two words, to Marat from David. He signed the painting into the painting. It's a dedication, a memorial, and a political act. Now, here's what I need you to sit with. This painting is propaganda. It absolutely is. David has taken a man who was, by many accounts, paranoid, cruel, and responsible for stirring up mob violence, and turned him into a saint. The bath is clean, the body idealized. The composition is borrowed directly from Christian art, specifically the Pietà, which is a famous image of Mary holding the body of Jesus. You know this Michelangelo's famous sculpture? Do you see it? That arrangement, that specific quality of grief, held perfectly still. David took it and transplanted it into a bathtub in Paris. Marat as the revolution's crucified Christ. David made this painting to serve the revolution, to turn a murderer into a martyr, to make you feel something specific. Grief, outrage, devotion to the cause. It's propaganda and it's a masterpiece. Both are true at the same time. And that tension is what makes David so important and so unsettling. He painted virtue, he preached sacrifice, and he signed the warrants that sent people to die. The revolution gave David everything: power, purpose, a reason to paint. Now it was about to take it all back. It couldn't last. The revolution, like all revolutions, started eating its own. On July 27, 1794, Robespierre, the radical Jacobin leader, was overthrown, arrested, executed the next day, and soon after, they came for David. He was arrested, imprisoned. He came very close to the guillotine himself, the same guillotine he had helped send others to. His students lobbied for his release. It took months, and in prison he did something remarkable. He painted himself, not as a hero, not as a martyr, not as someone Roman or Greek, just himself, a middle-aged man with a swollen cheek. He had a facial tumor that distorted his features, holding a palette, looking out at you with an expression that's hard to read. Surprise, confusion, honesty. It might be the most intimate thing he ever painted, because it wasn't for anyone. It wasn't for the Salon or for the revolution. It was just a man in a cell looking at himself. And don't ask me how he got painting materials in prison. After his release, he said he had been deceived by the mask of patriotism. Was he? Was he really deceived? Or was he just saying what he needed to say to survive? That's one of the great unanswerable questions about David. And I think the answer might be both. He was a true believer who was also very good in surviving. People are complicated. And then he met Napoleon. It was 1797. Napoleon was a young general, already famous, already radiating that kind of charisma that makes painters reach for their brushes. David met him and wrote, "Oh, my friends, what a beautiful head he has. It is pure, it is great. It is as beautiful as the antique. As beautiful as the antique." There it is again. David looked at a living, breathing military commander and saw a Greek statue. He couldn't help himself. And Napoleon, a master of image and spectacle, saw in David exactly what he needed. The greatest painter of his time, ready to turn him into a living legend. Napoleon Crossing the Alps, 1801. You know this image. Even if you've never been into an art museum, you know this image. Napoleon on a rearing white horse, cape flowing, arm pointing forward, the names of Hannibal and Charlemagne curved into the rocks below him, as if to say, he belongs among them. I've seen this painting in person, and the first thing that hits you is the scale. If you see it on a screen, it's completely different from how people back at the time felt when they saw it in front of them. Like, this painting is about this size. You just stand in front of it and you feel that you're looking at something amazing. I can't explain it, you have to experience it, because I was really surprised to feel that way. Okay, back to the story. The painting is huge. You stand in front of it and you feel small, which is, of course, exactly the point. Napoleon asked to be painted calm on a spirited horse. David delivered. Here's the thing though, the real crossing was difficult, cold and unglamorous. Napoleon rode a mule for much of it, led by a local guide. David wasn't painting what happened. He was painting what Napoleon wanted to believe about himself. The heroic version, the myth. Nobody remembers the mule. Everyone remembers this. And then there's the Coronation, 1805 to 1807. Over 30 feet wide. Napoleon crowning Josephine at Notre Dame, surrounded by hundreds of figures. David was there in person, sketching the ceremony. But he rearranged reality. Look, see that woman in the balcony? That's Napoleon's mother, Laetitia. She's prominently placed, watching proudly. Except she wasn't there. She refused to come. David painted her in anyway, because Napoleon wanted her there. The painting isn't a record of what happened. It's a record of what should have happened, according to the men in charge. After Napoleon's final defeat in 1815, the Bourbon monarchy was restored, and they had a long memory. David had voted to execute their king in 1793. That was 22 years ago. They hadn't forgotten. He was exiled, banned from France as a king killer. He moved to Brussels and kept painting, but the work got softer, less urgent. The fire was going out. He died in Brussels on December 29, 1825, at the age of 77. France refused to allow his body to return. The man who had been the most powerful artist in the country, who had shaped the visual identity of the revolution, of Napoleon, of an entire era, was buried in a foreign city. He's still there. So what did David leave behind? A movement, a set of rules, and an institution, the Académie Royale, that would enforce those rules for the next 50 years. His greatest student, Inre, became the guardian of that legacy. He spent his entire career defending classical drawing, insisting that discipline and line were the foundation of everything. The Académie backed him. For decades, the world David built held. So here's where I want to leave you. David understood something fundamental about images. They aren't just decoration, they're arguments. A painting can make you believe something. It can make an idea feel noble, inevitable, even heroic. His style helped make that power possible. The clean lines, the stark compositions, the restrained, controlled color. Everything is clear, deliberate, and serious. Nothing is accidental. The paintings feel certain about what they're saying, and that certainty is persuasive. And the images themselves did real work. The oath of the Horatii didn't just show Roman virtue, it presented a model of duty and sacrifice. The Death of Marat didn't simply show a political killing, it transformed Marat into a martyr of the revolution. Napoleon Crossing the Alps didn't document an event, it constructed Napoleon's image of leadership. That's David's real legacy. Not just a style and not only a school of followers, but a demonstration of how powerful images can shape political imagination. But the more interesting part of David's story isn't the propaganda, it's the man behind it. David painted virtue, duty, and sacrifice, and he seemed to have genuinely believed in those ideals. At the same time, he lived at the center of power during one of the most violent and chaotic periods in French history. That combination was rare. An artist who wasn't just observing events, but helping shape how they were seen and remembered. And that may be what makes him so remarkable. Not just a great painter, but an artist whose images helped define an era. But not everyone accepted what David had built. Not everyone thought paintings should be lessons in virtue, or that reason should rule everything art could be. One painter, born in 1798, just a few years after the terror, the revolution's most violent period, was about to blow the whole thing up. with color, with chaos, with a trip to North Africa that changed the way he saw everything. His name was Eugène de la Croix, and his story starts with a shipwreck, a madman, and a raft full of corpses. That's next time. Okay, bye!